This is Radio Ukraine International with the Thursday program International Dialogue, hosted by Viktoriia Kriukova and produced by Iryna Samsonova. The change is coming. Step by step, slowly but steadily, Ukraine is moving towards its European dream. And Western military and financial help is a key factor on this path. Every year, the United States sends billions of dollars in aid, much more than any other country, to beneficiaries around the world in pursuit of its security, economic and humanitarian interests. Heading into 2022, United States foreign assistance was driven by various priorities of the Biden administration, including combating climate change, responding to the COVID-19 pandemic, and countering authoritarianism. But since Russia's invasion in February of that year, Ukraine has become far and away the top recipient of United States foreign aid. It is the first time that a European country has held the top spot since the Harry Truman administration directed huge sums into rebuilding the continent through the Marshall Plan after World War II. My guest today is Arthur Damaso, a political analyst and an expert in the United States and informational politics. We will talk about the strategic and political aim of the United States military and financial help to Ukraine. How beneficial is it for them? What lessons should Ukraine take from the United States as the best example of democratic state building in world history? It's a new program called International Dialogue. I'm the host, and actually we are talking about international topics. So the topic of the first program is American-Ukrainian relationship, what is going on right now. We know that the United States is a country who helps Ukraine most of all and a lot, financially and military. The first question is, what is the strategic and political aim of the United States military and financial help to Ukraine now? How do you see it?
Thanks for inviting me. If we break this down into a few key points, I think we have to go back a little bit into all the, let's call it like military campaigns that the United States have been involved in during the recent decades. And we can see that there are so many people in the political analysis environment and outside of it, talking that the impact and leadership role of the US is slowly decreasing. And basically, when we are comparing the foreign policy of three latest American presidents, meaning Obama, Trump, and Biden, we can see that in Obama case, that strategy of like non-involvement into the European situations, into the European business has been chosen. If we talk about the Crimea annexation, we can definitely see this approach clearly. If we talk about the Trump's foreign policy, we can see that the United States was trying to play this isolationism game, which resulted in worse state of Euro-Atlantic relations. And if we look at the Biden's foreign policy, the bigger involvement in the Ukrainian case is an opportunity for the United States to prove its leadership role in Europe and also in the global context. Of course, it would be really, frankly speaking, dumb not to use this opportunity.
I also want to ask you about the political climate in the United States, because it is changing all the time, and next year we will have American elections. And lately we have seen that grand American jury, they imposed like allegations against Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is a very specific person in the world politics and for Ukraine too. So how do you think, how serious these allegations? And we know about this myth, that if Trump were a president, there would be no war in Ukraine. What can you say about this, fake or not fake? How you can comment it?
if we talk about the allegations then and etc., the question is that Trump and his foundation did many things and violated the American law numerously in terms of financial reporting and tax reporting and etc. So as I was writing for one of my researches in 2021, I guess Trump was already facing a huge amount, as for one person, of like these different accusations and tax fraud, financial fraud, and all of that kind of stuff. So it had to appear to the surface sooner or later, and it finally did. The only question is that basically you had no precedent before of the ex-president being imposed with such charges. However, and that's why, for example, like many people did not believe that it could happen, but it happened. Even though, Trump is a person that likes to use even the most controversial things related to him to his favor. And now he also turned these allegations into the part of his election campaign. If we talk about the issue of war against Ukraine, the thing is that unfortunately, we had many people in Ukraine supporting Trump during his presidency because they loved his image of being anti-establishment, anti-system. I mean, these people did not pay attention to something that was obvious, which was his very, very, very tight relations with Russia and Russian establishment. I mean, when we say, would the war in Ukraine happen if Trump would be the president? The answer is maybe yes, but it's not a good thing for us because it would not happen, because probably Trump would give up on the Ukrainian interest. That's the point. To be frankly speaking, I think he sees Ukraine more as an issue and as an obstacle in his relations with Russia than the ally. And that's the issue.
You are listening to Radio Ukraine's program International Dialogue, hosted by Viktoriia Kriukova. My guest in the studio is Arthur Koldemaso, a political analyst and an expert in the United States and informational politics.
Does he have the real chances to win on the next presidential elections? Because we know that 60% of Republicans, they support him, and 40% DeSantis. So who is the winner?
That's a good question, because also like this whole trial thing can change the campaign trail a lot. But, Trump stays popular. That's the truth that many people don't want to face. The only question is that there are very interesting signals appearing among different tracks and different elements of this whole like election thing. First of all, for example, when Trump announced in social media that he would be arrested, he called his supporters for a rally. He called them for a protest. And actually, many people hoped and many people thought that the protest will happen on the scale of January 6th. However, it did not, for surprise of anybody. I mean, I guess barely 50 people came to this protest or rally or whatever that was. And the issue is that many Trump supporters were against the idea of protesting, referring to the fact that they are separating themselves from Trump, which is really interesting because Trump has won the elections in 2016 thanks to QAnon group and thanks to InfoWars, Breitbart establishment, and all these far-right conspiracy theorists and their fans who thought that Trump is leading their fight with the establishment, or how they call it, Washington swamp. But now you can see them distancing themselves from him, because now they think that they have more issues with the American government than without him. Another question also is that, again, as you said, DeSantis has approximately 40% of support. However, it's not a final figure, because many people inside of the Republican Party and many Republican supporters say that they are tired of Trump's turbulency and Trump's unexpectancy, if we can call it like that. Because we live in so dynamic and so turbulent times, that the United States want, especially the Republican Party fans, they want some kind of stability. And DeSantis gives them this stability in terms of positioning and in terms of the whole approach to politics. Like, he's more predictable, and his policy is more leaning towards the typical conservative line of the Republican Party, or GOP informally called.
You are listening to Radio Ukraine's program International Dialogue, hosted by Viktoriia Kriukova. My guest in the studio is Arthur Koldemaso, a political analyst and an expert in the United States and informational politics.
Which lessons can we learn from the United States as like the best example of democracy in the world? The main lesson is that America is not the best democracy in the world, and Americans know it, and Americans show it. And it sounds funny, but it truly is. And actually, in comparison with Russian narrative, when Russia tries to portray itself as like this perfect paradise, or North Korea, for example, as this like super strong country that is pitch perfect and like doesn't have any flaws and etc., is always a sign that something's wrong all the time. Meanwhile, for example, right now I'm working like with the OSCE, where I see like two of these narratives in the diplomatic field back to back, and how different they are. And like, meanwhile, Russia is always trying to tell that everything is perfect, everything is fine. Russia is like standing for the world values, for the world morality, and etc. And like, these are the US, and like they are bad, and like they have racism, etc., etc., etc. The US are like, yes, we do have these issues, however, we are working with them. And it's really an important thing to remember that all countries have issues, and all countries are imperfect in a way, because they are consistent of human, which are also imperfect. It's just the issue of working with all these mistakes and all these issues instead of trying to cover them up and ignore them. And this is also the way to make a better place for Ukrainians and make a better democracy for everybody, to work on mistakes, and just to understand that the United States are not perfect. However, they are trying. And this thing that matters, because Russia is not trying to do better for its people.
I got it. We're just humans. We made mistakes, so it's normal, you know. And
Yes.
the state consists from humans who are building this state. So actually, it's not perfect. I just wanted to ask you at the end, maybe you want to tell something to our foreign audience, because we usually try to deliver a message that, you know, to build image of Ukraine, but not as a victim, but as a country who is building its economy, regaining territories, and here it has a huge potential. What do you want to say to foreigners?
That's a good approach, really. I like that approach. I want to say that please, if somebody still has doubts about it, trust me, Ukraine is a modern, resilient European state that has the incredible potential in future, and that has incredible, talented, passionate people who really care about the future. Ukraine cares about the future. Just help us to make this vision real, and just help us with still being able to make this vision real. I think this is important. And again, we are open for communication with you, and we are open to accept the differences and also be open to accept our differences.
I thank my guest Arthur Damaso for his opinion and time. America is Ukraine's strongest partner in economy and defense. This alliance is needed by both sides. It is especially crucial for Ukraine because it needs weapons as a country at war. Still, it is important to understand that Ukraine is not just a victim country, and it is profitable for the USA and other world partners to support Ukraine. First of all, as a developing democracy. Second, morally, because we are fighting for ourselves and the whole world. Third, we are a prosperous country in almost every sphere, starting from black soil and finishing with the most valuable asset, the people. So we must send the message to the West that supports us, you are supporting yourselves. We hope that radio programs like this make some contribution to achieving this big goal. And the task for Ukraine is to know how to make the most of its potential and show it to the world. And that's all for this edition of Radio Ukraine's program International Dialogue, hosted by Viktoriia Kriukova and produced by Iryna Samsonova.